we gotta talk about some studying, some anatomy studying, because I've been getting a lot of questions throughout my whole career about anatomy, but most recently during last week's live stream and a few of the videos that I've been releasing, I've been getting a lot of questions about anatomy, especially when some of you probably saw the short video that I did about how I like to go about studying anatomy. So I'd like to elaborate on that a little more, because I think the majority of videos that I see specifically on YouTube, I feel like it's such clickbait, and I don't know. I feel like a lot of them are really terrible, or a lot of them are just like the same thing over and over again without being like genuine, actual, like helpful advice. I don't know. That's just kind of my opinion. But I think that there are like literally 4 things that you need to do to like learn and study anatomy. And I think they're really, really simple. The first one is you need to learn proportions. This is like really basic stuff. It's like the bones of the body, the skeleton, which is what we're going to be getting into here in a moment when we start sculpting this skull. So for the bones of a human body, they're pretty much the same for every single person. Obviously, there's a lot of variety in people in terms of height, in terms of weight. But for the most part, the skeleton doesn't really change. You know, no matter how muscular you are, no matter how skinny you are, how fat you are, the bones don't really move unless you're growing from infancy into adulthood. So the first thing you need to learn is proportions, the bones and the relationship between those bones. The second thing you need to learn are the planes of not just the face, not just the arm, not just the hand, the leg, but everything, the general planes of the body. So if we're looking at these 3D figures over here, learning the general planes of, like this muscular guy, you want to break down some of these shapes and start to think about how this upper portion of the shoulder transitions into the upper portion of the arm, into the forearm, the lower portion. How is the front different from the back? Obviously, these are really stylized and simplistic shapes, but it's still the same basic principles from something that's realistic to something that is more stylized. So that's number 2. The third thing you need to learn are the muscles, which is a lot, right? There's a lot of muscles going on in the body, but for the most part, there's not very many that actually affect the visual portion of what you need to learn. Like if you're just looking at the front, there are only like 3 or 4 major sections of the torso that you need to learn. There's only like 4 or 5 major sections of the arm that you need to learn. There's not a lot, but that is something that you need to learn and study. From there, the last part, number 4, is just filling in the gaps. This is like starting to get into the nitty-gritty of what you don't know. And this is where I'll start to talk about, and we'll be looking at later, some more studies. So starting to work on something like, I was just talking about an arm, starting to work on an arm, finding that place where you have a gap in your knowledge, where you start to sculpt the upper portion of the shoulder into the upper portion of the bicep, tricep, etc. And you get a little confused or things aren't looking quite right. That's where you need to start like getting in and, trying to figure out what's going on under the surface there and learning more about what you're trying to create. So find those areas of struggle and just like, that's kind of level 4, right? The ultimate level where you've learned all the basics, you've learned the proportions, you've learned the major planes, you've learned the muscles and kind of a little bit more about what's going on there. And now it's just like filling in the gaps. So that is my real, like, just honest opinion on what you should be looking for in terms of studying anatomy. So much I see all these like little tips and tricks that feel like it's advice, but you like actually leave that video or you leave that tutorial and you're like, did I really learn anything from that? So hopefully those 4 things are like actionable things that you can look at. You can find where you are on that scale. Are you on proportions? Are you on planes? Are you on muscles? Or are you past the basics and you're like starting to fill in the blanks? So hopefully that's something that you can take away from this video or this stream and start to actionably take advantage of as you move forward in your anatomy studies.